everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pusher podcast. As always, my name is Justin. I'm here with Brandon. It's been a while, but new year, we are back. Brandon, how you feeling?
Feeling great. Really excited to be back and recording this podcast. And yeah, it's going to be a great episode. We're going to talk about our personal experience with Formula One, which is super exciting.
I'm pretty pumped about it. We spent so much of our episodes last year talking about how we couldn't wait for the United States Grand Prix because we were going to get to be there, and then it happened, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it. So we are going to be taking this episode today to talk through it, what it was like. We're going to be giving our best and worst experiences, favorite parts of each day. So I think it should be awesome. But let's start it out how we usually start it out. Brandon, what is your one sentence rundown of our weekend at the United States Grand Prix?
My one sentence rundown is just, I don't know if this is a full sentence or not, but incredible experience with incredible people. It really is a unique environment when you go to a Formula One race. Not really like anything I've ever experienced, and it's fun to get to eat really good food. They have live music and stuff, and we got to experience it together, and then with our friend Preston and my dad as well. So that was cool to be able to not only experience that, but share it with great people that you love. So.
It was really awesome getting to obviously be there together and with Preston and your dad. It was an incredible group. But even I feel like just the people that were in the stands were all great people as well. Like I feel like obviously being from America, our primary sporting event to compare it to is football games. And you and I both spent a lot of time in Kyle Field supporting those Aggies. There are a lot of rowdy and intoxicated and wild people there, but I really didn't feel like I had that experience at this race at all. We sat next to those two Ferrari fans all weekend who sounded like they're from like New Zealand or something, who were super awesome and kind, and we were talking and reacting with them, all the things that are happening. So even outside of the people that we went directly with, I felt like it was just the people that were in the stands were also made it an awesome experience.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one unique thing I think is that about Formula One, pretty much everybody that goes there is excited to be there and wants to, see the event, which is really cool. At some other sporting events, sometimes you just get people who want to be there because their friends are there or they just want to be a part of the environment or go tailgating or whatever the case may be. But at Formula One, I think our experience definitely just everyone there that we interacted with like wanted to be there and just wanted to have a good experience. So I think that is what makes it unique a little bit.
And a good experience we definitely had. Goes right into my one sentence rundown that man, it was so worth the wait. I mean, we had been talking about it for so long. Like obviously we had gotten our tickets probably back in like February because we had the pre-sale stuff from the last one. So we had, 9, 10 months to build up to it and then had been talking about it on this podcast for weeks beforehand. And it just I feel like it lived up to all of our expectations and probably then some. I mean, it was better this year getting to be in the grandstands instead of general admission. And I just think like knowing stuff from the year before and this year made it a lot better, but it was a way better experience this year and it was so much fun for sure.
It was awesome. And hopefully we get to continue to do it in the future.
But the general overview out of the way, let's get into our specific experiences. Obviously, we got in Thursday night, went to a lovely HEB, had to pay for our grocery bags because Austin, we won't put that on Formula One. That's just the way it goes. Um, but Friday, run through it. Some of our favorite parts for me, my first favorite part was that we got qualifying on the very first day. So obviously, when we went last year, we had two free practices, which was awesome. Can't complain about seeing cars on track. Got to see that sunset lap from Charlie Claire was pretty great. But this year, knowing we had the one practice and then being like, all right, like from now on, it's competitive sessions and then get to have that first competitive session. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I did enjoy last or 2022, getting to kind of watch the cars kind of ease into the weekend, but it was also a cool experience just to have boom straight out of the gate Friday. We've got action, we've got something that has bearing on Sunday on Friday afternoon. So that was really cool. And it was a great qualifying session as well. So that was really fun.
We got to have that qualifying session that night, but that actually wasn't the last session on track that day. We stayed afterwards because there were two F1 Academy qualifying sessions afterwards, which is something that was new this year. We didn't get to have last year when we went, but there was an actual Formula support series, which was cool. What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was really cool. It was awesome to be able to experience that and get a Formula One support series on the track with us. I think last year in 2022 there was supposed to be one, but then it didn't end up happening. So to have that, and then also to have the Porsche Cup there as well, that was a really enjoyable thing to watch. And just one thing for me I thought was really cool was being able to compare the differences just watching the cars go by. Um, obviously the fastest cars on track all weekend were the Formula One cars. So getting to see the other cars and compare them to the Formula One cars kind of just made it just that much more real for me about how fast and how, you know, incredible of a sport Formula One is. So that was a awesome experience.
It was pretty crazy seeing the F1 Academy cars go around, like how small and slow they really were. Like it was interesting. I don't know if maybe Circuit of the Americas wasn't a great track for them just because of how big it is. But I mean, they were having like 2 minute laps in those things, like over 2 minutes. And it just like definitely felt like even in that like S section that we were in front of, it was like, man, they're really like full throttle in this thing and just going. But yeah, it was definitely really cool to see for sure. It's so cool.
Yeah, it was awesome to be able to, I don't know, it's like one of those things that makes you think of like, how big of a step it is from these smaller support series up to Formula One and how much of a difference, being in a Formula One car is, and how much more impressive that is to be a Formula One driver, as opposed to somebody who drives in F3 or F4, So,
And then us and our go-karting on the weekends. I don't have
right,
anything
yeah.
on them, nothing at them at all. What was your favorite part about getting to be there on that Friday?
On Friday, it was cool to be able to explore the track a little bit on a less busy day. Friday was, this year was definitely busier than Friday last year because, in last year there was, just two practice sessions on Friday, and the second practice session was the last thing on track. So there weren't as many people. But obviously this year with qualifying being on Friday, and there being a little bit more on track action, there was a little bit more people there, but still less busy than Saturday and Sunday. So I definitely really enjoyed being able to kind of get our bearings about, finding where our seats were and where the food was and where we wanted to, go explore the next day. Being able to do that on Friday and having a less busy day to do that was great. I feel like that kind of helped set our weekend up for success and helped us plan for Saturday and Sunday too, which was great. That so that was a great experience for me on Friday.
I think a big part of that was because we got to be in the grandstands this year. I know we'll talk about it more later, but just having our seats secured, being able to walk around like as an entire group and not having to leave one of us behind to save the seats and save the stuff. I think that definitely improved our experience.
Just having a home base was huge for the program, just having a place that where we didn't have to worry about somebody else sitting in our seats or moving our chairs or uh, taking our stuff all together. But yeah, that was awesome.
All right. So we got there again on Saturday morning. Um, we had two competitive sessions before we went that day. Obviously, usually it would be free practice three and qualifying, but we had a sprint shootout in the morning and then the sprint race in the evening. So it was cool to be able to have the two competitive sessions, but it also technically meant that we had less time of Formula One cars on track, which I kind of felt on Saturday. Like it definitely felt that the sprint shootout went by very quickly, and then we were waiting a long time for the actual sprint race. which obviously went by quick again because it's just a sprint. So it was cool to have the double competitive sessions, but also it was like, man, the F1 cars really weren't on track that much today.
It was great. Yeah, I think it was great to start off the morning with, the sprint shootout, get the grid set for that. That was really enjoyable to watch, kind of earlier in the day. But yeah, I definitely agree that there was a lot of time in between the shootout and the actual sprint race. And then, you know, I love watching the sprint race, but it definitely did feel too short. I think it was only like 19 laps or something like that, 18, 19 laps. And those laps definitely went by quicker than I wanted them to. Um, but that also left a little bit more time for the support series action. I feel like on Saturday was when we really got to enjoy the majority of the support series stuff. We got to see um, academy races, and then I think we got to see. Did we see a Porsche Cup race on Saturday, or was that only on
Hmm.
Sunday?
Yeah, there was one on Saturday,
Yeah,
and then we
so
got to see the Masters as well.
that's
So
true. Yeah, the
there's
Masters.
the three support series. So there was still races going on, which was nice. I definitely felt like there was stuff to do that day for sure, which was nice.
Yeah. But yeah, it was also a cool thing to just experience the sprint race um in person and see kind of more of what the impact of the format change on the sprint weekends has on the fans, that are in attendance. Because, we've definitely experienced it quite a bit, just being able to watch it from home, but to actually be there and kind of just gave us a little bit more of a perspective on what the sprint weekend is and how it affects the experience of the fan at a Formula One race. So I think that was uh, interesting. Definitely gave us a lot to think about how do we feel about the sprint format and all that stuff. So it was cool.
All right, well then I'm gonna put you on the spot with this one. It's obviously been announced for next year that Circuit of the Americas is hosting another sprint race. We got to see it in person. Do you think that Coda's a good track for a sprint race in the current format? Did it fit? Are you happy that there's going to be another one next year? What are you feeling about that?
I will say, yes, I think it fit well for the weekend for the track. I think, did fine. I think it, where sprint would add more value to me as a fan is if there was a little bit more rotation of the venues that the sprint races were held at. And so I think when you hold a sprint race at the same venue multiple years in a row, that kind of detracts from I don't know, the mysteriousness, the mystique of the sprint race of like the new format. So I think where it would add more value to me is if F1 rotated the venues that it was at more. So I was excited to be able to experience the sprint race format at Coda this past year, but knowing that it's going to be held there again makes me a little bit less excited for the sprint race next year because I've already experienced it. Not to say that I know what's going to happen, but I have a good idea of what that experience is like. So it would be more exciting for me to have a different venue other than Coda host a sprint race, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely great. I think Circuit of the Americas obviously has one of the best turn ones on the calendar, which is something that you want for a sprint race. You might have people out of position from the qualifying in the morning or knowing it's a shorter race or taking bigger risks into turn one. So I think like that sets it up well. I think you could definitely say that maybe Coda is too big of a track for a sprint race. Like it's up there as one of the longer tracks on the calendar, but I think that probably was felt more by the people watching at home than us there in person. Like obviously being there in person, seeing the cars go by each and every lap, like it was still cool. And obviously there wasn't much happening at the front of the field, but there was still plenty of action in the midfield for the race, which we got to watch.
Yeah.
That was super cool. But yeah, I definitely agree that it being there again kind of hurts it. I think part of what made the race weekend so interesting was going into Sunday and the grid being mixed up, not exactly knowing about setups because the teams don't have as much data because they just had the one practice session that weekend. And so if you do repeating sprint venues, that just gives teams another form of data being like, here's how the cars reacted in the sprint last year. And so I think that takes away from that aspect of like what can make sprint weekend special for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But moving on to the big day, Sunday, obviously the race. We got there pretty early on Sunday. I remember walking to our seats and there being an F1 Academy race going on. Because obviously the lines to get into the track were a little long on Sunday. They were the longest that we had seen for sure. There were people complaining about not being able to sneak things into the venue as they had on days past. We did not run into that issue, luckily. But what was your favorite part of being there on Sunday?
On Sunday, obviously the race was huge. I really enjoyed being able to walk on the track afterwards. I think for me, both of the times that we've been, that's been one of the coolest parts, one of my favorite experiences. So yeah, I think outside of obviously the race, I think being able to walk on the track and just, take pictures on the track and, say that we got to, be standing on the track where Formula One cars had raced literally like 10 minutes before. So that was pretty cool. One of the definitely the best experiences of the weekend for me.
Yeah, that was definitely really cool for sure. I think my favorite part of Sunday was the fact that Max Verstappen was not on pole, did not lead from pole. So we were sitting next to the two Ferrari fans. Front row was Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. So they were going crazy with Shaw going into turn one with the chance to get the lead, and just every time Lando Norris went by, like our entire grandstand would stand up and cheer because there was someone else in the lead, and it was like we might see Lando Norris get his first win here. Like this is crazy, and then you had Lewis Hamilton closing him down, and Max coming through the field, and so there's actually a lot of action at the front, and to get to like see the gaps in person and being like, okay, he's like this much closer on this lap, and so I think that was really cool because if Max had started from pole and just driven away, it would have been like, oh, all right, like here's a battle for second, cool. But
Right.
it ended up being a battle for the lead, and it was like seeing the gaps close for the lead was super cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. Definitely getting to see, I mean, both years that we've been at Austin, it's produced great racing at the front. And that's been really cool to watch, especially there was definitely a part of me at the beginning of the race when Lando was leading. I was like, man, it would be amazing to get to see him have his first win in F1, be there in person and stuff. But, you know, unfortunately, the RB19 and Max Verstappen did what they are known to do and stormed through the field. But yeah, it was
Yeah,
definitely cool to watch all those gaps close. And Lewis raced an amazing race, even though he was disqualified afterwards. He and Charles were both disqualified, um, but yeah, it was a fantastic race, and just getting to watch uh, them fight at the front was really cool. So I definitely agree with that. That was awesome.
that was another thing on Sunday is we were driving home. We had just gotten dinner at Whataburger, and we're leaving Austin, driving back, and got the notification on the phone that Lewis Hamilton was disqualified, and then Charles Leclerc was disqualified. Logan Sargent got points on home soil. I mean, what a turn of events on our way home.
It was, yeah, that was crazy. And just for Logan Sargent to get his first points on home soil was awesome. It was I think kind of fitting that we didn't really know that he got his first points on home soil till after the race, and we didn't get to watch him, I guess, celebrate that. But I feel like that was just kind of a microcosm of how his season with Williams went, and it was a fitting way to get his first points. But it was awesome that it was on home soil, and we got to be there. They had a really cool livery on that Williams car for
It did
the
have a
race.
very cool livery on that car for sure. For sure. Yeah. Um, all right. What was your favorite part overall of being there for the weekend?
See, my favorite part was really just to, we've talked about it a lot so far, but just it was great racing across the board. Even on Sunday when we were watching the Porsche Cup, when we went down on the ground in front of our seats, being able to like be up close to see the Porsche cars get to go by. That was really cool. And it was just great racing across the board for the entire weekend. And so that was probably my favorite part of just getting to witness all that in person and obviously share it with you guys as well. So it was a great weekend and good racing across the board. We were definitely not disappointed from the on-track action. So
think my favorite part was getting to sit in the grandstands, but not just the grandstand as a whole. I think the grandstand that we were specifically in was a really good one. And I was surprised that it was the cheapest one to sit in. Like we ended up being where the action was. We saw Lando Norris lose it at our turn on Friday. We saw Max Verstappen lose it on Saturday morning. We got to see, where that was where a couple accidents were in the Porsche race.
mhm.
Saw a spin there in one of the Sunday F1 Academy races. So it felt like all the action that was happening on track was happening right in front of us. So we were in a good location. It was cool to be next to the same people all weekend, get to know people in the grandstands, and it was just a good experience where we were on track. And I know that it was a little more hit to the bank, but I think it was definitely worth it to have that seat over the general admission.
And if I remember correctly, it wasn't that much more expensive than the general admission because general
No, it
admission
wasn't.
prices had been raised from 2022. So we decided to pay a few extra dollars and just sit in the cheapest grandstand and absolutely worth the little extra money that we paid. And it was just invaluable to be able to have a place where we could, we knew we were going to have seats. That provided so much value to us, especially being able to compare it to general admission and, not having to lug our lawn chairs across the Coda
That was a
grounds
perk as
was,
well. Yeah.
that was huge. That was great. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How could we forget about the countless chicken tenders we had right behind our grandstand as well?
That's
Lovely,
true.
lovely chicken tenders. Shout out Wings and More, the
Yeah,
curly fries, the ranch. I mean, we just had that every day.
we did.
It was
We
great.
had three chicken tender meals, one Friday, one Saturday, one Sunday, and it was awesome. We decided that, you know what, it was right outside of our grandstands. We didn't have to walk very far. The price was decent. It was good food, and they gave us quite a bit of food too. So,
They sure did. So shout out those chicken tenders. All right,
yeah.
biggest surprise of the weekend, being there in person. What was it?
Let's see. My biggest surprise, honestly, was just how much knowing the environment and knowing what to expect just elevated our experience. Um, knowing where things were, knowing, the best way to get places, knowing where food was located, where bathrooms were located, just taking our experience from the year previous and having that. Obviously, I knew it was going to be positive to have that experience, but I just didn't realize how much that was going to elevate our experience. And I think it made for such a great weekend. Not that 2022 was bad. Part of the fun from that was getting to have no expectations and
Yeah,
experience everything for the first time, which was awesome. But you know, having that knowledge, that little bit of edge on, somebody who hadn't been there before, I think really elevated our experience and it made a bigger impact than I thought it would. So it was an awesome weekend and we used a lot of stuff to our advantage, which I think was great.
for sure. I think definitely the big thing with that was just like we we didn't have to worry about little things as much. We got to just spend more time focusing on the racing and get to doing the things we want to do around the track than having to be like, oh, well, like, are we going to be able to make it back to the bus on time just because we didn't know how late they were going to run or what it was going to be like, or are we going to be able to? Do we have to get there way earlier than we wanted to? And so different things like that. So just like not having to worry about the little things and just getting to enjoy the racing. It was very valuable, and it's going to be nice to get to go back in the future for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my biggest surprise for the weekend was the outlet merch prices and what was available this year. If you've never been to a Formula One race, if you go to a team stand, you're going to be paying like $7 million for like a T-shirt with that says Lando Norris on the front of it, you know. And so you got to hit up the F1 outlets. And as you know from listening to episodes past, huge Daniel Ricciardo fan here. So they had these Daniel Ricciardo the jerseys there. You know, if you remember back to last year, they had the US Grand Prix McLaren jerseys that they did for the drivers. Um, I had brought $100 bill cash that I needed to get rid of because nowhere accepts hundreds. And I was like, this is my merch budget for the weekend. And so I saw the jersey and I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to get. It's probably going to be like $80. And then maybe I'll get another random t-shirt with the extra 20. Got up there, asked them for the price. And they're like, it's like $20. And I was like, what? And so I ended up getting both Daniel Ricciardo jerseys, the orange one and the blue one, with my money that weekend. And I was just shocked at what they had available. I mean, even beyond the Daniel Ricciardo stuff, they had the Williams jerseys from last year. I felt like the merch that was in the outlet this year was way better than last year, and the prices were pretty good. Well, except for that mini helmet you asked about, but other than that, prices
That's
were pretty great.
That was a wild experience, this just the mini helmet with the Formula One Miami logo on it. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's at the outlet store. The other ones at the regular shops were running about $400, maybe a little bit more. I was like, maybe this one's marked down to like 100. It's not even a specific driver's helmet, so if it was like $100, maybe I would have done it. But walk up there, hey, how much is this helmet? They're like, we don't really know, but what our boss told us to tell people was $4,000. And I was like, alrighty then,
Right.
$4,000. That's insane.
You
Uh,
can you can go ahead and keep that. I think I'm gonna be
yeah,
all right.
yeah. That was just a funny experience, but oh well, next time.
Oh well, next time we'll come with the $4,000. We'll be ready for sure.
Yeah.
All right, obviously we made predictions for this Grand Prix a long time ago, so we got to look back on them really quick as we wrap up this podcast. My predictions, I said there'd be a different sprint and Grand Prix winner. It was looking so good that that was going to come true, and that was me saying in my heart. I said it when we made these predictions that I thought Landon Norris was going to win one of them, and I came so close to being right. Unfortunately, I was incorrect. I also said that Daniel Ricciardo would outperform Yuki Tsunoda. I'll say it's incorrect. Went and looked back at the results, and he qualified ahead of him in one of the two sessions and finished one of the two races ahead of him. But I remember being there in person and being like, Yuki had a better weekend. So I'll say that one is incorrect as well.
Yeah, I do remember that. I don't exactly remember the details of it, but they put Daniel on a different strategy than Yuki in the Grand Prix on Sunday, and that ended up being the wrong decision. I think
Yeah.
Yuki, I don't remember exactly, but I think Yuki was either close to scoring points or did end up scoring points.
Yeah, he scored points. He was P10 across the line, then had the disqualifications, ended up P8.
Yeah.
Um, so that was good. Um, but yeah, they put Daniel on the one stop, and so it was frustrating because they were running like 11th and 12th. They were right with each other on track before the pit stops, and then they left Dan out forever, and then put him on the hards. It was awful, and then at the end put him on the softs, and just as like a collecting data for his comeback and stuff like that, which was fine. But yeah, uh, definitely didn't have the preferred strategy for the weekend, and I think it made his race look a lot worse than it actually was for sure.
At least we can know in our hearts that Daniel had a better race than what the paper says.
Like yeah, yeah,
But my predictions also went 0 for 2 here. I was saying that McLaren was going to pick up 3 podiums total. That ended up not happening. At the time, McLaren was on a pretty hot streak. They had a good weekend, but Oscar Piastri was not um, as on it as he was in the past. That's okay. Oscar had a great season, but my prediction was still incorrect. So, yeah. And then my second prediction was that Daniel Ricciardo was going to score a point. also unfortunate that that was incorrect. He came pretty close in the sprint race. I think I want to say he finished like P10 or P11 in the sprint race.
I think he
Um,
finished 11th.
yeah, so I mean that was relatively close. Only the top eight score points in sprint race, but yeah, so obviously always going to be eternally optimistic about Daniel and his chances at scoring points
Absolutely.
and winning championships and things of the such. But yeah, hopefully next year will be better with the predictions, but that's
Will
okay.
be hopefully so. And we'll go back. That's got to be AlphaTauri's fault that you didn't get that point because you got to think he would have, would if you finished eighth, Dan was right behind him. They put him on the one stop, so you got to think, you know, better strategy. Dan's right there
Yeah,
scoring a point. You get the prediction right
yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
So that's not on you.
Absolutely. As I'm
Um,
the strategist at AlphaTauri, so
All right, well, that pretty much wraps up our experience at the 2023 United States Grand Prix. What a time it was! So much fun. So excited to get to continue to go to more Formula One races in the future, but also get to bring you guys more Formula One content in the future. I know this is going to be an incredible year full of incredible podcasts and other things coming soon. So, Brandon, what are your parting podium thoughts for our lovely listeners today?
parting podium thoughts. Let's see. 2024 is here. Not only the actual year, but also the 2024 season is almost upon us. We are like 5-ish weeks away from testing. Um, it's like mid-February when testing happens. So that's super exciting. Parting thought is that um, Formula One is almost back, and so I'm excited. It's gonna be great.
Sure, we're less than a month away from the first car reveals, which I'm pumped about. That's super exciting. But yeah, my parting thoughts, just get excited. Formula One is almost back, but we're back too. And we got some super awesome stuff coming this year. We're excited to get to share with you guys. So, if you're not hopped on yet, get on and buckle those seatbelts because we're coming and it's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. It's gonna be a great year. Lots of good content. So it's gonna be exciting.
All right. Well, Brandon, this was awesome. Thanks for doing this. Can't wait to talk to you guys again soon. And we will see you next time. Peace.
See you.